Hello, welcome, bienvenidos. It's a pleasure to welcome you to another Seen and Heard. This is the last production of this, our 59th season. I am beyond excited, thrilled, truly honored as artistic director of this wonderful theater to welcome Christopher Betts and Heather Alicia
Alicia.
Simms. Alicia, perdóname. Heather Alicia Simms to this Zoom room to talk to you all about this fabulous last production of this, our 59th season, Alice Childress's extraordinary play, Trouble in Mind. So Christopher is the director of this production. He is our Joyce C. Willis Fellow. An enormous thanks to the Roberts Foundation, who have supported us in bringing Christopher to Hartford Stage for 2 seasons.
Yep.
So he is doing work with our education programs, doing community outreach, and most importantly to me, selfishly, showing off and sharing with us his gifts as a director. Directing Trouble in Mind, which has as, star seems an odd word, Heather, right? It's protagonist as its key voice, as its leading lady, as its center, as its emotional and I would say moral center. The extraordinary Heather Simms as Willetta. So we'll talk a little bit about this play and this production with both of you, but just really grateful. You've had a long day in the rehearsal room today. Let me start there and then, to share with our audience, what was your day like today in rehearsal? What did you do?
Today in rehearsal, we actually finished the play. So that was a great question.
So you finished staging, right? So for an audience, that means we start a process, we sit, we talk, we kibitz, we decode and share. And then for me, the most terrifying day, the first day, we get on our feet and try to figure out how to walk and talk at the same time, right?
Oh, that's my favorite day.
Awesome. I love it when that day's done.
I love seeing how directors decide to start the day, but I love the week before or the few days before, if that's given, of table work. I love being able to dig into a script because for me as an actor, it helps me to get on my feet and it helps me to
Yeah.
be able to help the director, so that
Agreed.
I am filled with intentions and ideas, and I'm able to just move. I feel like I'm able to move more freely on the stage.
I totally agree, right? I love that you guys did such wonderful table work. You really, and by table work, we mean you literally sit around a table and you're decoding each line and talking about the history and the feelings and the words and the choices. But Christopher, you say, so today you finished.
Yeah.
So that means you finished a first pass of figuring out every physical move in the play.
Yeah, so we finished staging Act 2 today. We have been making our way through, getting through a chunk, breaking everything really down into moments. But then I would say, let's read through the moment together as a group, say what we think is happening, set some anchors, and then we would work through it. And then we did sort of a rolling method where we would get through maybe 5 to 10 pages and then go back. And then so then we would run 1 through 15, and then we would add on 15 through 25, and then we would go back and then do 1 through 25, which was a different method. I've never used that method
I love
before.
that. Yeah.
I really, it's very, very, very useful, and I could see the actors are very well tracking the arc of their characters, also the retention of blocking. So I don't know what, I think it was the great opportunity to direct in the thrusts that, it was also useful to me to see where we were going and to make sure that everything felt fluid and made sense. and that the actors knew what was going on. So I think it was actually Hartford Stage, a space that gave me the impulse to work in
That's
section
great.
and move forward and add on more and go back to the beginning.
I love that. You know, with the French, people have heard me say this a million times, so forgive me, but the French verb for rehearsal, the French word for rehearsal is repetition.
Mm.
And so you go to repetitions. That's
Yeah.
what you do. And you know, that's um so this is a play, Trouble in Mind by Alice Childress, that I have loved for years. I first learned of it probably about 20 years ago, which is, 30 years too late. But I learned of it while working at Center Stage in Baltimore, and I saw an extraordinary production there, and I was floored and immediately asked for a copy of the script. And then while teaching, I would give students scenes from this play. So a part of my brain has lived in this play for a long time, just in my admiration and love for it. And I couldn't wait to program it, right? This is really on my bucket list of plays that I'm honored to be able to present. But I wonder if I asked, as I will ask each of you, what the play is about.
Mm.
So Heather, what is Trouble in Mind about? What is an audience going to see from your point of view, solely from your point of view? What is this play?
I mean, I think it's about a lot of things, but it's a play that was written then in 1955 that really still is about now. It's about a group of people coming together and thinking that they are going to present a play. And what happens is that the wounds that many of them, all of them are living with, become exposed in this process. And the issues that they were living with contemporaneously were coming through the play, even when they thought the play was supposed to solve something. And so
Yeah.
I think it's something that when you read the play and you realize that it was written in 1955, but it feels so contemporary, it feels so now, it's a bit shocking.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shock, to say the least.
That it's so fresh, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so many things that she references, even though, the language has changed a bit, in terms of how we speak about the issues. They are the same issues. And so every time.
In terms of Black artists and, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Heather.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, every time I hear, something in the play that reminds me of something that's going on now. And I read this play. I actually did this play when I was in college, and that was in the last century. So, so
I was in college in the last century too, so I'm with you.
So having done it then and thinking, oh my gosh, she wrote this when, and now moving to this time in my life and still going, wow, the fact she wrote an incredible play.
I agree. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Christopher. It's I can throw in my 2 cents of what draws me, but I want to hear you.
Oh, yeah. The collegiate poll was there for all three of us because this play was actually done my first year at Yale School of Drama. It was a student thesis production. And I saw it, I didn't know much about it. And I sat there in the audience and all the actors came out in the period costumes, but the conversation felt so present. I remember sitting there and saying, one, I cannot believe that this was written in 1955. And two, I have to direct this one day. The story is so incredible because it talks about the challenges that Black, Indigenous people of color, specifically Black folks in this story, face in trying to make theater, that it's so much more of a burden than coming to work and being able to be a storyteller. You're often faced with huge, big universe questions of, okay, where's my integrity come into play in this situation? If I choose my integrity in this moment, am I cutting myself off from an immediate need? Like, am I cutting myself off from having this working position, but also a long-term need of like, well, you know, if I'm in this situation and I do use my voice and it's not received in the way that I would hope that it would be received, that can have a long-term effect, because our industry is also very insular. So it's something that that I can't view, read, or direct without getting excited and both anxious, because the themes in it are so harrowing and they're so present, and it's challenging to know that we have grown in a lot of ways, it's in terms as an industry, but there are so many ways in which we have not grown, and that we still have so much room to grow. So it definitely is a play that makes me feel that I am in the presence of something that is greater than myself, in all of its truth, in all of its beauty, and in all of its ugliness.
I so appreciate both your words on this. You know, it's so interesting, right? Because it's kind of set up to our audience who will see this play. It feels at first very much, you know, we're getting to know a troupe of actors. We're backstage. We're watching people rehearse. They're kibitzing. All right, my verb, not necessarily the plays, but, you know, they're chatting about their jobs, about this gig, about how important it is to work. And the society of the theater becomes really an incredible metaphor for society at large. It's just writ large here what each of the people in this play, the different socioeconomic and backgrounds, educational backgrounds, racial backgrounds, and their own life experience, and how they're bringing that to their workplace. And then how the play that they are trying to do pushes these what is it? It's not sore spots, right? But it pushes in the vulnerabilities. It exposes the fault lines. And so you see the unraveling of the process of putting together a play while watching an extraordinary play be put together. The genius of the construction is awesome. I will say to audiences, I mean, when you come, you're seduced by these characters and drawn in by all the different points of view that are explored in theater. I do think part of what I love about this play is that it can only be a play. It feels so, how it's telling its story is so theatrical, right? I don't know. And that maybe Christopher speaks to your being influenced by this gorgeous thrust stage we have. Have you worked in a thrust before?
I have worked in a thrust in grad school, but it was actually, it wasn't a thrust, it was an alley configuration. But I've worked in a classroom setting in thrust spaces, or in thrust configuration, but this is my first professional show in a
So
thrust.
great. We love a thrust here in Hartford. We just love how it works. Heather, what's your experience with thrust stages like Hartford's?
You know what? I've been trying to think about the time that I've worked in theater, and I can't remember working on a thrust. Now, I've worked in the round because
Right.
my university's theater, which is no longer there, was one of the oldest theaters in the round in the country at the time. So yeah, I worked in the round, but I don't remember working in thrust on the thrust stage.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
This is my first.
For me, what's so special about the thrust is how close you are to our audiences. It is like in the round in that way. Do you know? those of you watching the play are in the play with Heather, you know? It's
Yeah,
and
and that's
Heather,
something
you've
that I'm
done
excited
oh,
about. That's something I'm excited about, being able to really get a taste of the energy, a feel for the energy of the audience, because I do think that, the audience will take sides, and they will have um uh, strong responses to many of the characters, you know.
it's really theater of, I mean, it's emotional, but it's a debate. It's a theater of ideas, and there are sides to take, and there are sort of moral ambiguities there, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's we're very honored that we get you back to the theater, Heather, because we know you've had so much success in other media of late. So it's really, I just want to say what an honor it is that we get to welcome you back to the stage here in Hartford. And there's a Hartford connection, right? So can we talk
Yes.
about that?
I was born here. I was born right in Mount Sinai Hospital, right off of Tower Avenue, Blue. Yeah. So I was born here, and I grew up coming here in the summers to visit my aunt and uncle. And so, I love Hartford. I love being here. So I'm excited to be back on stage, and being back on stage in the town of my birth.
We're so excited. And there's also another connection, which is this, that lovely Mr. Betts
Oh.
was your student. Yeah?
Was
And
I feel like I've raised him well.
you have done
Have
a
good
good
taste.
job.
I've
We
done
are
a
grateful for your
fantastic
teaching.
job. Yeah. And so it's so funny, Christopher was one of those students who wasn't actually enrolled in my class. He came to me and said, "I'm going to take your class." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he came to
And
each and
this
every
is at
class
NYU. This
at
is teaching
NYU.
acting at NYU.
Yeah, at NYU. And so I was like, who is this kid? And then he was like, "Oh, you're gonna be my mentor, auntie, mother, whatever." I was like, "Okay." And we've been friends ever since, and I just adore him.
The feeling is very mutual.
And he's a fantastic
We're
director.
Oh, thank you.
and we get to welcome you both here. We get to reunite you here. It's
Yes.
really our privilege to get to host you both here.
I thank you for that.
Oh, please. We thank you. Let me turn back to the play for a moment and talk about its title. So, I'm a huge fan of hearing Nina Simone sing this song, right? I did a little sleuthing because I really didn't know its origins, but why is the play called Trouble in Mind? What do you each think? Where does the title take us?
Well, all of the words in the title actually appear scattered across the play. My favorite line from the play, the most resonant line in the play, is when Willetta says, "I mind, I do mind, I mind, I mind, I mind." And the character she says that to is Sheldon. And earlier in the play, when Al Manners, the director, is giving out the given circumstances of what the play within the play, Chaos in Belleville, is about, Sheldon says, "Trouble." And then I was in our run through stumble today. Al actually says, "I've got troubles up to here." So there's this, yes, it's clearly in connection to the song. I believe the Nina Simone version was released a few years after Trouble in Mind. So there's been several iterations of the song. So
Like
there's,
30. I
yeah,
mean,
there's
like
so
30
many
years, right?
iterations.
So, yeah. Oh, you
Uh,
mean the Nina Simone version of the song after the play.
Yeah,
That's what you mean.
so there have been like that's so the Nina Simone
Because there's the
version.
26. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the Nina Simone version isn't the first. Forgive me, I can't remember who was the first person who created the song, but the Nina Simone version is the one that I would say people
So
are most familiar with.
So it's amazing. It's this guy, Richard M. Jones, right? Who wrote it. And then many people knew it through Louis Armstrong, but it really wasn't till Nina Simone. So it's a song from the 20s, but it really captured sort of the spirit of the blues of the moment and continued.
Yeah.
But go ahead, tell us more about how it resonates in the play.
Oh yeah, the language just comes up so much and it's so frequently because it's like that thing that I was talking about earlier. It's just that there is your thoughts can lead you to risky situations, especially when you're working in a system that is not set up for you to succeed. So when Willetta is asked to justify the actions of her character, she's fine. She comes to rehearsal, she's ready, she's prepared. And then when she is asked to justify by Al Manners, when she's asked to think critically and consciously about what the character's actions are, there's quite literally trouble in her mind because what she's being asked to do does not make sense. The way that the character has been rendered is not truthful to humanity, and yet he is constantly asking her for truth and telling her that her lived experience as a director of a play that represents a community that he does not belong to. He is constantly telling her that her lived experience is not truthful enough for this rendering of the African diaspora on stage that is very rooted in stereotype, that's very rooted in problematic themes. So by being provoked to add truth and humanity, well, there's a line Willette in the play where she's like, you're asking me to do this because you think Black people aren't human beings. I know I'm a human being. She says that in
Yeah.
the play, and I hear that line. I'm like, goodness gracious, what does humanity mean, and how do we render truth? And who is the proprietor of truth? Who decides what is truthful? Who runs the rooms that are deciding what truths are being put on stage? So it's such a robust engagement of community and representation and telling stories from a space that feels honest and telling stories from a space as opposed to telling stories from a space that feels lucrative.
I
Beautifully
really
said.
Yeah, I can't add any more to that. The only thing that I would say is that, I think she questions who gets to tell our stories. And when and that's a huge question, because when people who do not come from your own lived experience decide to tell your story and then tell you that it has to go a certain way. Now, you can do it if you just need the paycheck or whatever. People do it all the time. But in order to think about it and to justify that is a whole other undertaking. And I think what is so poignant is that Alice Childress wrote a play that was supposed to go to Broadway. But even though the given circumstances of the play were what they were, she was still being asked by white producers to change her play.
Right.
To satisfy their tastes. And so by the time she got through rewrites and rewrites and rewrites, she no longer recognized her play. And so it was not transferred to a Broadway stage, not until 2021. And so,
yeah.
the things that she's talking about, it's almost like It's almost like she manifested through this play the destiny of the play in that moment.
It's absolutely right. I love how you put it. I mean, we're in a trap of reality and the mirror of right, hold up a mirror up to nature, and the mirror is so accurate,
Yeah.
right, that it's trapped as well. I mean, the thing that additionally that's so smart, I think, about this play, and I think the choices you all are making in rehearsal is the open-endedness of the ending. So I'm excited. We're not going to give anything away, no spoiler alerts, but that we're ending this season with this play that asks about storytelling after a season of storytelling here at Hartford Stage, and that kinds of leaves us with a question. And do you guys agree? I mean, is that presumptuous of me? I feel like there is a kind of an opening through this play of of purpose and voice and authenticity and integrity. And there are lyrics in Trouble in Mind that give us a hint of optimism, but they're cautious.
Yeah.
Right? The sun's going to shine in my back door someday, but it's a question, do you know? There's an open-endedness to this. Do you guys agree? That's my read of what you're doing in the play.
Yeah, I think that it's been so wonderful during table work. We spoke about the ending of the play quite a bit, and our dramaturg Arminda, who is so wonderful. I think that Trouble in Mind, in its openness, can lead one to try and resolve it or to try and make a statement. It can often feel that the ending is an opportunity for a director's scream, but it's not. It's very decidedly an open-ended invitation to trust the intelligence of the audience and ask them a question. So in trusting the intelligence of the audience, and Hartford Stage has, just in doing discussions and meeting patrons, has a very willing and eager audience to engage with challenging ideas and thoughts. So this is the perfect audience to present a really real question in front of. And, it's, directors, we all want to put our stamp on things, but it would be totally false and incorrect to what Alice Childress wrote to use that ambiguity to either make it more ambiguous or to try and create something out of it or to try and clear it up or to try and use that for a director's statement, a director's scream. So I guess my director's scream for the play is that this was written in 1955. The questions that this Black woman was asking in 1955, I find myself asking in 2023, and I don't think that I will be absolved of asking anytime soon. So it's really an uplifting of the same question rather than a tailoring or an interpretation of the question.
Or answering it,
Or
right?
an answer, right? It
And
doesn't, the
theater,
question doesn't need to be interpreted or answered. It needs to
that's
be.
right. Theater's here to ask questions, and we present these plays to all of you out there in Hartford and beyond in the desire that these questions resonate, that they amplify for you, that you're entertained while listening to the story, but are left with these nuggets in your mind of your own thinking of your life and your communities, right? So I love that.
Yeah. And Alice wrote it's to me a perfect play. You get to laugh, but then, there's so much pathos as well. And so she takes you through these hills and valleys that, as an actor, I just love to be able to walk through. So I'm excited about doing it.
That's the perfect note. I will tell you out there listening to us, this is an extraordinary cast. This is just an amazing cast a wonderful up and coming director. You will hear his name beyond Hartford, we have no doubt. We're grateful to be at this part of his career. But this cast and this design team will embrace you in this feeling like you're part of a rehearsal in 1956, a Broadway theater, and then remind you of all the important questions that theater poses and that our lives pose while you have a very good time in your terrific theater that we are grateful to share with all of you. Thank you so much, Christopher, Heather Alicia Simms, perdón. We are thrilled for this, for your time after this long rehearsal day. We hope all of you listening will join us for Trouble in Mind, our final show of the 22-23 season. We start performances, close your ears, Heather and Christopher, don't worry. May 25th, it's soon, in 2 weeks, 15 days. So we start performances May 25th. We run through June 18th. I also have to do a shameless plug. You have to subscribe and join us for our 60th anniversary season. Christopher's part of that season too. So many pleasures ahead. But the best way to support this theater and to see truly world-class performances and to be a part of this community is to subscribe. You can go to hartfordstage.org to do that, to learn more about each of the plays in our 60th anniversary and to subscribe, of course, but mostly come see Trouble in Mind and see and learn firsthand what these terrific human beings and artists are sharing with you. Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Christopher. We'll see you at the theater.
Yes, thank you.